Greetings and welcome back. This is Senior English B, and we are working now with Wordsworth's Tintern Abbey. We are in the second part of this conversation. And the first thing that I want to do is to provide you with some visual representation of Tintern Abbey. So you don't have to take any notes or anything. Just go ahead and take a look at the whiteboard there and kind of see some of the pictures of Tintern Abbey. Again, this is still today. These are modern photographs. This is still today. If you want to, you can fly to London's Heathrow. You can get off the plane. You can drive down south and you can take a look at this area. It is much visited, but as is the case in a lot of areas of England that are really old, it also is still just a community where people live. So here's a few pictures. You can kind of see no roof on the cathedral, right? Everything in stages of dilapidation. A couple of black and whites to give you a sense as well of different sides. All of obviously the stained glass now gone from the cathedral. Notice the green grass growing right up to the edge of the cathedral. Always with cathedrals, you're going to have some kind of a graveyard area, and that's what's being represented here on one side of the cathedral. There's another nice picture of the cathedral. You can kind of see again, no roof. This is inside of the cathedral, okay? So, in other words, the roof's been gone for so long that the grass just grows on the floor of the cathedral. You can kind of see the architecture is still, though, quite remarkable, right? Here's another part of it, an adjacent part, again, more of the same. You can kind of see there was at one time some really cool, beautiful stained glass, not anymore, right, in that oval area. I told you, you thought I was making it up. There it is. Yes, those are moo cows. So in other words, this really classic tourist site is actually just sitting in a pasture where cows get to go and eat and stuff. So there you go. More pictures of cows next to Tintern Abbey. This is a picture drawing of what the cathedral looked like in its heyday, when it had a full, construction and all of that. There up to the top is the River Wye, and that's today a modern picture taken obviously from elevation. This is what Wordsworth is seeing when he comes back to write his poem. This river to the side there is the River Wye, okay? So there you go. An introduction with images to Tintern Abbey. I like to give you that to just kind of place in your mind now what this looks like, okay, that he's seeing. Now let's go back. And we want to work now with the rest of this poem. That's our hope. And I'm going to work rather quickly now as we go through this poem, Tintern Abbey. We said yesterday in our earlier session that this poem is like a poetic essay. Let's now flesh out a little bit more what I meant. What is the topic of the essay? An introduction to romanticism. That's what you can write down. This is a poem that ostensibly is an essay in poetic language that introduces us to the primary elements of romanticism. How does he get there? He begins by introducing where he is. Again, a poem about place. We worked with the first 21 or so lines of this poem, and we could reduce all of that down to simply, I'm really happy to be back. It is a beautiful place that is going to elicit all five of the senses. What I can see, what I can taste, what I can touch, etc., right? He then makes the observation, moving in the second stanza at the bottom of 781 and on, using the theory of the forms by the great Greek philosopher, who? Plato. He uses this theory to say, here's the deal about being back here. This place in nature has been able to be for me restorative. That's definitely a word you want in your notes. If you put it there yesterday, underline it or circle it to remind you. Now, if you restore an old vehicle, you do what? You bring the vehicle back to its former state. This is the argument that Wordsworth will make. He says that when you're having a bad day, when things are not going well, it's actually not a bad idea to just get, for you guys, in your car and drive 30 minutes away to the hills. Past Hensley, up into the mountains, park your vehicle, and go for a walk. And when you do that, see, I have students who hate poetry who come into my class. They could care less about language and English and literature and poetry. But the minute I start talking about hunting, they immediately sit up and they're ready to listen. And I make this observation. I've talked to a lot of hunters who will say they wait all year for the time when they can go and be out in the woods again. They love it. It isn't for them just about going out and hunting and killing something, although obviously that's the prize at the end. But it's about the experience of being out in the woods. Many of the guys who I've taught and gals who I've taught who are hunters will say, I never really thought about it as restorative. What do you mean restorative? He says, being in the woods reminds him of what really matters, of what's important. Of course, you guys are blessed, we would say it without realizing it, that for the whole high school career, you could walk out the front door and look up to the mountains to the east and see Cloud Peak. See, you make fun of the fact that people with license plates on their Winnebagos from back east will literally stop and pull over and take photographs of Cloud Peaks. Like, dude, what are you doing? Or taking photographs of antelope or whatever, and you find this humorous. Of course, the reason you find it humorous is because you've seen it all your life. A colleague of mine was stationed to teach in Alaska, and he also was a track coach. And for them to go to their track outing, they had to get on a little ferry boat. They had to go across this body of water. It's kind of like a large harbor type area. And he was just totally blown away because he had lived in the city all his life. And he has these majestic mountains and, and the icebergs and the beautiful sky and the water. And he was just totally jazzed about it. All of his athletes put on their headphones and sit on the deck chairs on the ferry, and they just sit back and shut their eyes. He cannot believe it. And, he's kind of looking around like, guys, look at this. And then from out of the water, the whales started to breach. Right? They come out of the water, they're hitting. He's just completely blown away by this. He's like jumping up and down. You guys, you're missing it. He goes over, he tries to shake one of them who has his eyes shut, and he opens one eye and he says, what? The whales, right? The kid had seen it all his life. See? It didn't mean anything to them. To him, who had never seen it before, totally awe-inspiring. Years later, he would still talk about what an august thing it was to see this huge animal come out of the water and then land back in the water, spraying water all over the place. The kids had seen it so much, it didn't matter to them. You could make the argument, now you understand why Wordsworth will say in that other poem, my heart leaps up when I behold a rainbow in the sky. We could change it. My heart leaps up when I behold a whale breaching in a bay. Right? Same concept, right? Remember what he says? So was it when my life began? When I was a kid, I loved rainbows. So is it now I am a man? I still love rainbows. So be it when I shall grow old, or let me die. Whoa, now we're getting back to Tintern Abbey. The argument is we slowly die if we do not connect ourselves with nature. So being back in nature allows for him to remember what's important. Well, what is important? Well, we finished with this line yesterday, and this is where we pick up. Little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. The little things, not the big things, the little things are what make our lives significant, are what make our lives important. Two things here, and then we move on. One, it's interesting to ask about your own life and the little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love that have been committed for you and to you. I've had ball players that say, I've gone all the way through my career and never once went back to say thank you to the coaches who worked with me. Why is that? What are you talking about? They did what they were supposed to do. Well, yeah. But you are who you are because of little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. You are who you are because of those. When was the last time you said thank you for that? Let's put it in our notes. This is really important. It's called gratitude. It's called coming to a point in your life when you're ready to say to the people who have shown you those little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love, thank you. To some degree, seniors will often report, I've been kind of like a zombie. in regards to recognizing the important people in my life and what they've done. I said it yesterday. Meals have been made for you. How often have you ever said, I need you to hear me. Thank you. I mean that. And then, of course, for heaven's sake, certainly you don't just jump up from the table and run off without first offering to be able to help to at least clear the table, clean those dishes. What are you talking about? That's not my job. Little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and love. That is your life. You are sitting here right now because of that. You're not sitting here right now because of money. You're not sitting right here now because of any other thing. It's because somebody did things for you you didn't even recognize as valuable. And Wordsworth says, you better wake up because that's your life. There's a second part, and it's more intriguing. Think back to yesterday and ask the simple question. Yesterday, did you do even one, even one little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness or love? Or is your life about what everybody else does for you? Is that what your life is? Well, no wonder you're so unhappy, Wordsworth would say. No wonder you see life as so unbelievably painfully boring. You give your whole life to yourself. Of course you're bored all the time. You wait for everyone else to do things for you. What did you do yesterday? Go ahead, write it down. I challenge you to do this. Can you write down one little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness or love that you committed yesterday? Even one. Wordsworth says if you want to live a good life, you better do more than one. Of course, there's hope. You're still alive. Which means you have the opportunity today to commit at least one little, nameless, unremembered act of kindness and love. You can see why I said some of my seniors have written this line down and they put it up on a piece of paper on a wall or in their locker. We don't need pictures of beautiful people in our locker. We need to be reminded to say thank you to the people who have gotten us to where we are, and we need to be reminded to commit a little act of kindness and love, right? Notice it's unremembered. Don't do it expecting someone to say thank you. That's the whole point. They're not going to say thank you because they're not going to get it. They're not going to understand it. Or maybe they will. It all depends. Wordsworth will say, when I am in nature, when I am in the world of nature, I am more quickly reminded of what truly matters. Little nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. Let's continue now with this idea. I'm on 781. He says, nor less I trust to them I may have owed to them, the memory of these beautiful plays, these forms. A gift of aspect more sublime, that blessed mood. Let's get to it. Leave me alone, I'm in a bad mood. What does that even mean? What does that even mean? Leave me alone, I'm in a bad mood. Bad mood? Good mood? What are you talking about? What is this thing about mood? Well, Wordsworth will say it. He says, of course you are in a bad mood if you forget what really matters. What really matters in your life? What is the stuff that really your life is made of? We have a tendency to forget that really, really quickly. A rainbow can remind us of it. A walk out in the park can remind us of it. Looking at Ruthie's tree can remind us of it. If you don't have the capacity to understand that, Wordsworth might say, your soul is dying. You don't have to wait till you get old to die. He says you can start dying right now. To awaken to the mood, notice he calls it a sublime mood, that blessed mood, in which the burden of the mystery, in which the heavy and the weary weight of all this unintelligible world, top of 782, is lightened. Do you ever get this feeling? I have seniors that say this is the best poem we've read thus far for this reason. It starts to speak directly to what I know about my life. Do you ever have this feeling? It's like somebody's putting a large weight on your shoulders, and day after day after day, it's like more and more weight, and the stress of our life, and the problems of our world, and everything that's going on. And you wake up in the morning and you don't feel rested. One more day, and I feel really crappy. And day after, see the heavy weight. It's like bending. He says, how about let's get rid of the weight? How about just take the weight and set it off? How do you do that? Right. That's right. little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. If you're having a crappy day, make it better by making somebody else's life better. Notice when you say, I'm in a bad mood, you're concentrating on yourself. Make someone else. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Are you hearing what he's saying? Profoundly romantic insight. You may want to write about this one. It is simply this. You choose to be happy or not happy. You choose that. Events do not define your happiness. You choose to be happy. You choose to be sad. And Wordsworth says, when I'm in nature, I can choose more easily to get it, to understand it. Notice he finishes this stanza by saying, in which the affections gently lead us on until the breath of the corporal frame and even the motion of our human blood almost suspended, we're half asleep in body and become a living soul. Because I put that stuff on the whiteboard yesterday with those 2 boxes, this will make more sense. If you are unhappy, it's because you're spending all your time looking at the first box. If you want to be happy, start looking into the second box, not the first box. That's what he's just said. In other words, don't worry about the body. Think about the soul. Think about the energy that is the human existence. Notice he says, finally, you can be quieted by the power of harmony, the deep power of joy. We see into the life of things. There's the line. You maybe want to write it down. What is it? That's the goal. Sight. Real sight. See, if you're not careful, you'll look at Ruthie's tree and you'll just see the bark on the outside and the branches. What you'll fail to recognize is the power of the tree is the energy that remains inside. I'm now lecturing in the middle of winter. That tree looks dead. If I were to pull out my chainsaw and get ready to cut it down because it's dead, you would probably say to me, no, you don't understand the concept of life. I'm like, well, there is no life. Look, it's dead. I'm going to cut it down. I'm going to plant a new one. And you would say, what? No, you don't get it. It looks dead, but it's not dead. It's got life still inside of it. You just wait. And here in a little over 50 days, guess what? That tree's going to wake up. Right? And all of a sudden it's going to come back to life again. See, if you're not careful, you miss all of that. And tree is just a tree. And he says, then all of a sudden, you don't get it. You don't see straight. And that's the goal. The romantic intuition is to learn how to see again. Why? Why are we blind? The world is too much with us. Late and soon. Getting and spending. We lay waste our powers. Little we... See, that's why I had to memorize the lines. Little we see in nature that is ours. We've given our hearts away. What are you here for? To get a grade? So you can get a degree? So you can do what? Dude, the morning after you graduate, guess what? The sun's still going to come up. It's going to be the same day after day after day. If you look at your life as nothing more than that, one more day, I can hardly wait till the weekend. You've spent your whole life waiting for something coming in the future. The weekend, the summertime, I'm going to graduate. So, at what point do you start actually living your life instead of looking forward to living your life? You're going to turn around and be 40 before you know it. You're already halfway there. Does that not hit you? When you hit 20, you are halfway to 40. When are you going to start living your life? Wordsworth says, it's time to wake up. You've been like a zombie. I once had a student that said, oh, all these zombie movies. Right. They're making a profound point. You do not have to die to become a zombie. You can be a zombie right now. Sitting, looking at the clock, waiting for my lecture to be over so you can get on to the next holding pen. We're like cows. Waiting for the next holding pen, to get to the next room, to get to the next room, to get to the next room, so we can get to the weekend, so we can get to May, so we can graduate. To do what? I'm going to college. Really? So that's somehow going to be different from this. You were jazzed in 8th grade about coming to 9th grade because you get to go to lunch by yourself. Now you look at it and go, yeah, what a joke that was. That's not what you thought in 8th grade. What are you telling me? My whole life is basically one day after the next? It is.
just like the breath that you breathe is one breath after the next. At what point will you figure it out? It all ends at some point, and you don't breathe anymore. When will you see into the life of things? Now, let's point it out. This view is an optimistic view, so let's write that down. The romantic intuition for Wordsworth is an optimistic. What's the opposite of optimism? What's the opposite of optimism? Pessimism, right? Everything sucks, nothing's good, my life sucks, everything is bad. That is pessimism. Wordsworth is aware that some readers of this poem will think that he is a crazy, optimistic idealist. And he's going to speak now directly to those people. Notice the stanza break. He is willing to admit he could be wrong. Take a look at it. If this argument, read it with me, I'm on 782. If this be but a vain belief, in other words, if this is a stupid idea, this argument that I'm making, that rainbows and trees can actually help you to be happy, can actually help you to see into the life of things, he says, if this is vain, if it's not any use, how oft in darkness and amid the many shapes of joyless daylight, when the fretful stir unprofitable and the fever of the world have hung upon the beatings of my heart, how oft in spirit have I turned to thee, O sylvan why? What is the why? You just saw it in a picture. What is the why?
The river.
We're talking about that river, right? He says it this way. I could be wrong about this. And life in the end is really nothing more than useless. But he says, I don't think so. And he says, and when I think back to this place and I see this beautiful river, I'm reminded that life is kind of like a river too. And things go forward and things flow on. And he says, I think I live a better life with my view than you live with the negative view. That's a romantic insight. Let's put it in our notes. Optimism takes you farther than the negative pessimism. You can be pessimistic, but you choose to be pessimistic. Right? And a student once asked me to kind of reduce this concept into a single line. And I said it this way. When bad things happen, notice your first question is almost always, why did this happen to me? Why did this happen to me? You will never have a good answer for that. No longer ask, why did this happen to me? Learn how to ask, why did this happen for me? It's the only way you'll ever find any happiness in your life. That's Wordsworth's intuition. Learning to be happy in life, having a good mood, is a choice. You don't get up on the wrong side of the bed. You choose to see the side of the bed that you got up on as the wrong side of the bed. You get to decide. But for Wordsworth and the Romantics, this is a great piece of news. That means you have freedom. So you can actually choose to be happy. You can actually choose to take bad events in your life and turn them into something good. And then from that, use it. You actually get to choose that. You have the power to choose that. And being in nature for Wordsworth is a way to kind of awaken to that. Notice the stanza break one more time. We've moved from the past, and now we're coming to the present. We'll finish the poem in the future. And now, I'm on page 782. With gleams of half-extinguished thought, with many recognitions dim and faint, and somewhat of a sad perplexity, the picture of the mind revives again. While here I stand, not only with the sense of present pleasure, but with pleasing thoughts that in this moment there is life and food for future years. And so I dare to hope. I've had students that write that line down as well because they love that word, dare. I dare to hope. He says, here's the deal. If you in your life can come up with one or two memories that are really good for you, those memories can sustain you food and drink through all the crummy times that are coming. Now that's an interesting 3B question. You can write it in your notes and think about it later if you want to. When the really bad stuff happens and you're ready to call it quits, do you have a memory that you can go back to that will somehow help you to keep going? Can we use his language? Dare to hope. Dare to hope. Do you have a memory like that from high school? Do you have one that you can write down and be able to hold on to? What Wordsworth will say is, after you graduate, you're looking for a few of those experiences. Experiences that you can hold on to that get you through the really crummy stuff. Why come? Well, because we get older. Wordsworth now, for your notes, is going to tell us about how he has aged. Let's say it out loud. Wordsworth, when he writes this poem, he's an old fart. He's a senior. He's not a freshman anymore. He's a senior. And because he's a senior, well, things are changed or different. Notice he says, and so I dare to hope. He admits it, though changed no doubt from what I was when first I came among these hills. The first time, okay, are you ready for this one? Identify the difference. Some of you grew up with this word picture, so it's going to make sense. You're a kid. You all pile in the vehicle and you start driving towards the mountains. Are we there yet? Not yet. Are we there yet? Not yet. Are we there yet? Not yet. It's like it takes forever to finally get there. Finally, we get there. Notice the difference in the way people get out of the vehicle, right? The kids, door goes open, out they go, running, right? How do the adults get out of the vehicle? Slow. Oh, smell the lovely air. Oh, look at how beautiful, right? And how are the kids? Yeah, right. Yeah, it's really pretty. Nice mountains. Right? Gone, right? Notice how when you're young, you don't have time to think about the beauty of nature because you're experiencing nature, correct? When you're old, you start to want to qualify it. You want to, ball players do this all the time when they're seniors. Athletes do this all the time when they're seniors. They will try to relish every moment. This will be the last time I get to do this or to get to do that. Freshmen do not understand that concept. They're just having a good time just participating. It's for seniors because why? Well, we're older. See, we've been through seasons and we know it's about to come to an end. And it happens so fast and it ends so quickly that all of a sudden it all starts to matter in ways that it can't matter to young kids. He will outline what it was like when he was a kid. Notice he says, when he was a kid, when he first came among these hills, he was like a roe, a little deer that just kind of runs all over the place. Look at the word picture. I'm on 783. I bounded o'er the meadows or over the mountains, by the sides of the deep streams, the deep rivers, the lonely streams, wherever nature led. Look what he says he was like. More like a man flying from something that he dreads than one who sought the thing he loved. For nature then, and then look at the parenthetics, the coarser pleasures of my boyish days and their glad animal movements all gone by. He's not young anymore. He isn't like he was when he was a kid. Everything is passing. He says, back then when I was a kid, to me was all in all. And then look what he says. And I've had seniors that kind of say this too. I cannot paint what then I was. Take a moment and put a picture in your mind of what you look like as a freshman. Go back in time. I dare you to go back in time to the very first day you walked into this building. See your locker as a freshman where it was. Who was to your left and who was to your right. Some of you will say, dude, I can't even remember this. See how we start to forget so quickly? If that's true from 4 years, what will it be like in 20 years? Most of the experience of your high school will be completely gone for you. You will remember very, very little of it. It's just the way it is. But some of us can remember. And you can kind of get a picture. He says, I'm so old now I can hardly remember what it was like to be young. And then he keeps going. He says, the sounding cataract haunted me like a passion. The tall rock, the mountain, the deep and gloomy wood. Their colors and their forms were then to me an appetite, a feeling and love that had no need for a remoter charm by thought supplied, nor any interest unborrowed from the eye. I didn't need somebody to tell me that the mountains were beautiful when I was a kid. He said, I just enjoyed being in the mountains. I didn't need anybody to qualify it for me. That time has passed. Dude, you had to admit this. Even if you were to come back next year for one more year, you're not a senior next year. It's over. You can't go back and be a freshman all over again. It's over. No matter how much you want to go back, you can't. It's over. That's the essence of aging. And he admits it here. That time is past. Read it with me. He says at line 83 or so, 84. That time is past, and all its aching joys are now no more, and all its dizzy raptures. Is that freshman? I mean, we just defined freshman, right? I have this conversation with my freshmen, and they roll their eyes, and I will say to them, right about now, there are seniors, 2 of them, beautiful people, beautiful bodies, and they will go out and they will spend all night together, and all they'll do is talk. And my freshmen will laugh at me. Yeah, right, whatever. I'm like, no, I'm serious. It's got nothing to do with the exchange of fluids. They will spend all night together, and all they'll do is talk. And here's why. They know, tick-tock, 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 tick-tock. Pretty soon they're going to graduate. It's all going to be over. It's all going to be done. And for the first time in their life, they're starting to grab hold of the idea there's something else more important. Having a good conversation with somebody who you may not see again, your closest pal. My freshmen, they do not like, right. You keep believing that, McGee. And I will say, okay, I'll come back when you're a senior, and you'll tell me that it's true. It is true. All of a sudden, things start to change in what matters. Notice when you're young, dizzy, raptures, right? He says, not for this faint eye. I don't want to go back, he says, nor more nor murmur. Other gifts have followed. All right, here we go. This is a profound romantic insight. What do you gain when you get older? We know what you lose. Right? I heard a senior the other day say, these freshmen are driving me nuts. Where do they get all this energy from? They're like bouncing off the walls. You had energy like that too 3 years ago. It's the essence of getting older. It's just the way it is, right? He says, I don't want to go back because as I've aged, I've learned something. Really? What have you learned? Somebody once told me when I was your age, suggestion, when an old fart starts talking, shut up and listen. 90% of what he says you're not going to agree with. Listen anyway, because someday you'll come to understand it might be true. Here it is. An old fart's telling you, this is what it means to grow old and learn something. Really? What have you learned? He says, I have learned to look on nature, not as in the hour of thoughtless youth. Wow, is that freshmen? They're thoughtless. Let's just say it out loud. They don't think. They just do. He says, I've learned to look on nature, not as in the hour of thoughtless youth, but hearing oftentimes the still sad music of humanity, nor harsh, nor grating, though of ample power to chasten and subdue. And I felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts. Elevated thoughts? Yeah, it's back to my point. My freshmen don't buy it. That two seniors could stay out all night and all they would do is talk. Why? Because ideas matter to them more now. Elevated thoughts, right? Notice he will finish this part by making the observations that you can learn as you get older what really matters, right? I felt a presence that disturbs me with the joy of elevated thoughts, a sense sublime. I'm at line 95 or so. Of something far more deeply interfused, whose dwelling is the light of setting suns and the round ocean and the living air and the blue sky and in the mind of man. Emotion, and there it is, box 2. A spirit that impels all thinking things, all objects of all thought, and rolls through all things. Therefore am I a lover of the meadows. Why does he love the woods in box 1? Because they point him to the truths of box 2. Do you see how I can do that? Because of that model at the back. I'll say it again for your notes. It's so important. Why does he love the woods and the meadows and nature of box 1? Because they point him to a truth of box 2. That is to say, what we really want is not sex. What we want is love. What we really want is not drugs. We want freedom. It's the stuff in the first box we think matters until we start to grow older. If you could legitimately see yourself standing next to the grave of the person who raised you, who you love, you would see them differently tonight. Think about that. You would. You'd see them. You know it's coming. You know it's inevitably coming. So why not tell them thank you now while you have the chance to? See, this is his insight. And walking in the woods reminds him of that. In the same way that this afternoon when you go to lunch, you can walk out of this building, look up at Cloud Peak, and realize 1,000 years ago, those mountains were there and look the same. 1,000 years from now, those mountains will still be there. You will not. You won't. You'll be gone. And everybody you love, gone. Those mountains will still be there. Well, what does that teach you? It's a short life. And it matters. So do something with it. See, this is his intuition. I'm still a lover of the woods, the mountains, all that we behold from this green earth, and all the mighty world of ear, both what they have created and what perceive, well pleased to recognize in nature, in the language of the sense, the anchor of my purest thought. Look what he calls nature. The nurse, the guide, the guardian of my heart and soul, of all my moral being. In other words, he says, I am capable of recognizing what matters in my life because I spend time in the woods, because I spend time with nature. If you get too distant away from nature, you can begin to somehow think you're separated from it. And at that moment, you begin to die. Paragraph break, stanza break. Do you see it? I'm on page 784. He's not done. And here's why. He's dealt with the past. He's dealt with the present. And now he's going to go into the future. And the way he's going to get there, interestingly, he's an old fart, but he's not alone. He's with a young person. He's with a young person. Think back to the last time you held an infant in your arms. Or a little kid that you had to take to the park. Right? And there they go, bouncing, bang, 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 all over the place. They don't know how to stand still. I just recently talked to one of your colleagues who came back from one of the elementary schools in town. And she reported it was so weird to walk in there. She hadn't been there for a long time. The school she went to, 1st through 5th grade. And she walked in, and she said, right away, the thing that blew her away was how little everyone was. All the chairs were little. The bathrooms were little, and of course the people, they're all little. They're all running, running, running. And she pointed out, they cannot take a step without their mouth opening. They're always talking, 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 right? If you spend any time around kids, you know what I'm talking about. They're talking, talking, talking all the time, screaming, talking, talking, running, talking, movement. They're alive. They're alive. As opposed to what it looks like when you walk into this building. See, some of you can identify with this immediately, like, yeah, that's what I'm feeling right now. Right! Question, what will you look like at 40 then? Are you going to be the 40-year-old that an 18-year-old looks at and goes, oh, whatever happens, I pray I don't end up like that? Are you ready for this? You are 40 right now in regards to your attitude. If you've got a crummy attitude now, what do you imagine it's going to look like in 20 more years? If you're a pessimist now, if everything sucks now, if nothing matters now, what do you imagine it's going to look like in 20 years? Oh no, then I'm going to wake up. Wordsworth says, yeah, to his sister Dorothy, that ain't the way it works. As machines get older, what do? They wind down. That's called entropy. That's just the way it works. You have to work to stay alive, Wordsworth will say. Not stay alive physically, that's box 1. We know that's going to end. Take a look at how he says it to his sister. Nor perchance, I'm on 784. Now he's going to talk in this final stanza. He's going to talk to his sister. Nor perchance, if I were not this taught, should I the more suffer my genial spirits to decay. In other words, it's an interesting insight. Are you ready for this? He said, if I didn't think like this, I'd just die. Remember from My Heart Leaps Up when I behold a rainbow in the sky? So let me die. He said, if I didn't have this level of optimism, this level of hope, he says, I just die. I just forget. What's the point? Seriously, what is the point? If you've ever met a 40-year-old who kind of is already dying, everything sucks, nothing matters, job sucks, country sucks, everything sucks. The only time they're happy is if they're inebriated. You kind of look at them and you go, whoa, I don't want to be that. I mean, that's just kind of tragic in every way. He'll say to his sister, you know, the way I think is what's keeping me alive. Notice he says, for thou art with me here upon the banks of this fair river, thou my dearest friend, my dear, dear friend. Look what he says to a young person. And in thy voice I catch the language of my former heart, and read my former pleasures in the shooting lights of thy wild eyes. I said this to my senior, who was complaining about these freshmen driving her crazy. I said, why don't you instead look at their energy and ask where yours went? Because you had it just like that. You had it just like that once in your life, and then it went away. Why does it go away? That's an important question. He says when he sees his sister Dorothy, he can be reminded of who he once was in terms of his energy. Notice he says, oh, yet a little while may I behold in thee what I was once, my dear, dear sister. And then he makes a prayer. Knowing that nature, do you see it? Line 122. This is a capital N, isn't it? Knowing that nature never did betray the heart that loved her. This is pure romanticism. This is why this poem is considered the greatest of the English romantic poems. knowing that nature never did betray the heart that loved her. 'Tis her privilege through all the years of this our life to lead from joy to joy. That's what graduation is, and that's why you shouldn't be afraid of it. Your life should be about going from one joy to the next joy, to the next joy, to the next joy. There is no reason to dread. There is no reason to fear. Well, I don't know what's going to happen after I graduate. Dude, you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. I had the privilege in a former life of being a ball coach. And I coached a pretty remarkable ball player. And we came to the end of his career. And it was at the end of his career that we were before a major game. We were walking out together. And I always did this. I kind of walked out onto the field with him. And I looked at him and I usually had a word or two to him. And I said, you're going to play this game and we're going to win. And then after this game tonight, on your way home, you're going to get rear-ended. And you're never going to walk again. And he's giving me that look. He's like, dude, how do you know that? And I said, I don't. But neither do you. Neither do you. This could be the last time you ever run. So run hard. This could be the last time you play. So play hard. And after the game, the opposing coach came up to me and he said, I've been watching this kid a long time. I never saw him play that hard. He destroyed us. What did you say? How did you get him to play like that? And I told the guy. And the guy was like, that was mean. That was cruel. And I said, yeah, but you can play hard because you're afraid, or you can play hard because of joy. See the line? From joy to joy to joy. Why can't next hour be joy-filled? Are you kidding me? I'm in school. It sucks. As opposed to where? Where else would you rather be? At home, sitting on my couch. Doing what? Doing what? Watching TV. For what purpose? Has the thought occurred to you, TV is a way to deaden you. It's not a way to enliven you. It's a way to take away your energy, not give you energy. Some of you will wish to debate it. All I will ask is, let's have the conversation when you're 50. Let's have it then. Do you think you'll have a different view? You have a different view of freshmen now. You probably will have a different view of that project as well. You will. And some of you that have played video games so much of your life, you will not allow your children to do it when you get older. You won't. You won't. You will take them and you will put them in a vehicle and you will take them out to the mountain to go sledding. Why? From joy to joy. Because life is about action. It isn't about sitting. It's about doing, right? From joy to joy. Keep reading. He says, I'm with you on line 126. For nature, she can so inform the mind that is so thinnest, so impressed with quietness and beauty, and so feed with lofty thoughts. Here's the bad stuff that can come your way. Look at this interesting list. Neither evil tongues, people are going to talk bad about you. Rash judgments, you're going to make some stupid decisions. Nor where no kindness is, nor all the dreary intercourse, nor greetings where no kindness is. People are going to say hello to you, but they're going to be trying to be mean to you. Nor all the dreary intercourse of daily life shall e'er prevail against us or disturb our cheerful faith. That all which we behold is full of blessings. You're going to have a crappy life. The only thing I can predict for you with absolute certainty is you're going to have a lot of pain. You're going to have a crappy life. Everyone has a crappy life. The question is, can you go from joy to joy? Can it be full of blessing? Can you see your life as a gift? Wordsworth says to his sister, make sure as you age, don't lose it. Therefore, let the moon shine on thee in thy solitary walk. Let the misty mountain winds be free to blow against thee. And in after years, when these wild ecstasies shall be matured into a sober pleasure, when thy mind shall be a mansion for all lovely forms. Notice the word forms again for those of you Platonists in the house. Our two-box theory. Thy memory is a dwelling place for all sweet sound and harmonies. Oh, then, if solitude or fear or pain or grief, another interesting list. All this is coming for you. Look at it. Solitude or fear or pain or grief should be thy portion. With what healing thoughts of tender joy wilt thou remember me and these my, and that's the key word, exhortation. You might even want to write that word down. It's maybe for some of you a new vocab word. What does it mean to exhort? Does anyone know that word? To exhort means what? What's an exhortation? Does anybody know? Right. Schmelzer, you're right. It's giving encouragement. It's saying, listen up. We would say it that way, right? Listen up, listen up, listen up. Exhorting. To say, your life is really valuable. And he says to his sister Dorothy, don't forget it. Don't forget it. He will end, in fact, by saying that very thing. He says, don't forget that we were together here on the banks of this river, together. He said, I want you to hold on to it so that way we can grow old. He calls it, last line of 784, a worshiper of nature. Notice again, capitalized. He said, just remember, we came unwearied in the service, rather say with warmer love, with deeper zeal, with holier love. And don't forget, and here's the key, don't forget the stuff that matters in your life, right? What matters? Little, nameless, unremembered acts of kindness and of love. All right, guys.